Get your broke-ass scamming face out of my boutique before I have you arrested." The words, colder than the chilled champagne offered to preferred clients, snapped through the rarefied air of the Elysian Couture flagship on Rodeo Drive. Caleb Vance's palm sliced through that fragile atmosphere and connected with Imani Sterling's cheek. The sound wasn't a slap. It was a detonation. A sharp, ugly crack that made 75 of the city's wealthiest shoppers gasp as one. The collective intake of breath sucked the oxygen out of the room. A woman in a Chanel suit dropped a silk scarf. A man inspecting a platinum watch froze, his wrist hovering over a velvet display. And then, as if choreographed, the weapons of the 21st century emerged. iPhones slid from alligator clutches and tailored pockets, their lenses instantly focusing, hungry for the drama. Children, accustomed to a world of hushed tones and polite deference, stared with wide, unblinking eyes as their mothers instinctively pulled them closer, shielding them not from a physical threat, but from the raw, unfiltered ugliness of the moment. Above, the discreet security cameras, nestled like black diamonds in the coffered ceiling, blinked their silent red judgment, capturing every damning frame of the assault. Imani Sterling stood perfectly still. Her hand rose, not in a defensive gesture, but in a slow, deliberate motion to touch the 5 burning fingerprints blooming on her skin. Her bespoke navy blazer, tailored to perfection, remained uncreased. Her custom briefcase, crafted from the same leather as the seats in her private jet, never slipped from her grasp. Not a single sound escaped her perfectly composed lips, but behind her dark, almond-shaped eyes, something ancient and dangerous flickered to life. The entire boutique, now a silent theater of shock and outrage, held its collective breath, waiting for the aftershock. Before we dive into the fallout from a slap heard around the world, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss a single second of this story, and trust me when I say, the ending will change how you see everything. Have you ever seen someone detonate their own life with a single, catastrophic mistake? A moment so completely ruinous that you knew, right then and there, their world was over? Let me know in the comments below. 15 minutes earlier, the world was still intact. 15 minutes earlier, Imani Sterling had walked through the towering glass doors of Elysian Couture with a single, straightforward objective. Return a defective $5,800 limited edition Serafina clutch and have a discreet conversation with corporate about the brand's deteriorating quality control. She had acquired the piece just 4 days ago, a python skin clutch advertised with a 24-karat gold-plated clasp. It was a gift for a departing board member, but upon inspection she'd noticed the clasp was already flaking, revealing the cheap brass beneath. It was a small detail, but for a brand built on the illusion of perfection, it was a crack in the foundation. A lie. The Beverly Hills flagship pulsed with the quiet, predatory energy of a Wednesday afternoon on Rodeo Drive. The air was thick with the scent of French perfume and new leather. Wealthy wives and bored heiresses drifted between racks of obscenely priced clothing, their movements tracked by associates with predatory smiles and commission-hungry eyes. Sunlight, filtered through the double-height windows, danced off the gleaming marble floors and the crystal-draped chandeliers, creating a temple dedicated to the worship of wealth. Imani approached the customer service desk, a monolith of white Italian marble. A young associate, a girl named Ashley with meticulously applied makeup and the brittle politeness of a new hire, looked up. "How may I help you today?" "I need to return this clutch and speak with your manager about a quality issue," Imani stated, her voice calm, professional, devoid of emotion. She placed the Serafina on the counter. Ashley's practiced smile tightened as she examined Imani's receipt, her eyes flickering from the name on the paper to Imani's face and back again. There was a beat of cognitive dissonance. "Oh, well, returns on exotic items require manager approval." Her tone shifted, a sub-zero drop in temperature. "He's extremely busy at the moment. I'll wait." 25 minutes crawled by. Imani stood to the side, a silent, motionless statue of patience. During that time, she watched. She watched as a blonde woman with a similar return, a dress with a snagged hem, was serviced in under 3 minutes, complete with effusive apologies and a bottle of complimentary champagne. She watched as another client was granted a full refund and a generous store credit for his troubles, simply for a delayed alteration. Imani, however, remained invisible, a ghost in a navy blazer, pointedly ignored by every staff member who passed. Finally, Caleb Vance emerged from a back office. He was 42, with sandy blonde hair slicked back with a product that looked expensive but couldn't mask his thinning scalp. His Italian suit was a size too tight, strangling his torso and betraying a desperation to appear more important than he was. He moved with a swagger that failed to conceal a deep-seated insecurity. He surveyed Imani, his gaze sweeping over her from head to toe with a blatant, undisguised disdain. "What seems to be the problem here?" He didn't make eye contact with her. His attention was fixed on the clutch, as if its presence on his marble counter was a personal insult. "I purchased this 4 days ago. It was sold as having a 24-karat gold-plated clasp, but it's clearly cheap brass with a faulty plating." Her tone was factual, clinical. "The craftsmanship is subpar for a luxury brand. I'd like a refund and to discuss this quality issue with your corporate office." Caleb let out a short, sharp laugh, a sound like tearing fabric. "Lady, you probably damaged this yourself, trying to shove God knows what inside. We can't take back merchandise that's been abused by the customer." Imani's phone vibrated silently in her briefcase. The screen lit up with a calendar reminder. Sterling Global Q3 Review, 2:30 p.m. She had exactly 10 minutes to conclude this transaction and get to her corporate headquarters 6 blocks away. "Sir, I have not damaged anything. The piece was defective from the moment of purchase. Your quality control." "My quality control?" Caleb stepped forward, his personal space violation deliberate. His voice began to rise, gaining an audience. "Listen here. We don't cater to people who buy things they can't afford, and then try to bring them back when the buyer's remorse kicks in." Shoppers began to turn their heads. The low hum of commerce faltered as the scent of conflict entered the air. A few, sensing a spectacle, subtly angled their bodies, their phones held loosely at their sides, ready for action. Imani, however, remained a fortress of calm, her professional demeanor an impenetrable shield against his escalating insults. "Sir, I can assure you, I can afford this handbag. I simply expect the quality I paid for." "Oh, I'm sure you can." Caleb's eyes did another derisive sweep. "Let me guess, a little gift to yourself? Put it on a credit card you're going to be paying off for the next 5 years, just to impress somebody at the office? We see your type all the time." The crowd was growing now. Among them was Mia Kim, a fashion and lifestyle influencer, her mind a blur of hashtags and engagement metrics. Recognizing the viral potential, she discreetly propped her phone on a display of wallets and started an Instagram Live, whispering to her 30,000 followers, "Y'all, you are not going to believe what's happening at Elysian Couture right now. This manager is going full-on racist Karen on this poor woman." Comments instantly flooded the stream. "OMG, where is this? Record everything. This is disgusting. Get his name." Imani glanced at her watch, a custom Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, its value easily exceeding Caleb's annual salary. "I need to be connected with your corporate office, now." "Corporate?" Caleb laughed again, louder this time, playing to the crowd. You think the suits in some skyscraper give a damn about one random complaint? Lady, they pay me to handle problems like you. He physically blocked her path to the counter, crossing his arms in a display of pathetic authority. Two junior associates, Ashley and a young man named Kevin, flanked him like nervous Secret Service agents, their discomfort visible, but their courage non-existent. Problems like me? Imani's voice remained perfectly level, but a glacial coldness entered her tone. Yeah, people who come in here thinking they're entitled to special treatment just because they walked onto Rodeo Drive. This isn't the mall, sweetheart. We have standards here. Mia Kim's live stream hit 50,000 concurrent viewers. The comment section was a waterfall of rage. Fire this man! What's the store's corporate number? This is 2025 and this is still happening? Everyone, screen record this now! Another shopper, an older woman with elegant silver hair, finally spoke up. Excuse me, young man, but you are being incredibly rude to this lady. Caleb spun around, his face reddening. Ma'am, with all due respect, stay out of it. This woman is trying to scam us. Scam you? As Imani adjusted her grip on her briefcase, a card holder was briefly visible. Inside, the sleek, matte black of the American Express Centurion card was unmistakable to anyone fluent in the language of extreme wealth. The legendary Black Card, an invitation-only status symbol reserved for those with annual spending habits that dwarfed the GDP of small countries. But Caleb, blinded by his own prejudice, either didn't see it or didn't comprehend its significance. Yeah, scam, he spat, buying high-ticket items, damaging them on purpose, and then demanding a refund. We see it all the time with... He paused, his eyes narrowing as he finally gave voice to the poison that had been brewing behind his teeth. People like you. The racism was no longer a subtle undertone. It was now a toxic cloud hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. Mia's stream hit 75,000 viewers. The hashtag Deutschelesian racism was beginning to trend on Twitter. TikTokers in the store were now filming from different angles, creating a 360-degree diorama of his self-immolation. Imani's phone buzzed again, an encrypted message from her chief of staff. Urgent. SGH board meeting moved to 2:45. Need you here. She had 5 minutes. Sir, I am going to ask you one last time. Process my refund and provide me with the contact information for your corporate office. And I'm going to tell you one last time. No. Caleb took another step forward, invading her personal space so completely she could smell the cheap cologne, mingling with his stale coffee breath. Maybe you should go shop somewhere more, appropriate for your budget. A collective gasp went through the crowd. This was no longer about a defective clutch. This had become a primal battle over dignity, over respect, and over the ugly, persistent stain of prejudice that luxury brands spent billions to pretend didn't exist. Imani remained perfectly still, her dark eyes scanning Caleb's face, not with anger, but with the detached focus of a scientist studying a particularly virulent bacteria under a microscope. She was memorizing every detail of his face, every flicker of hatred in his eyes. The custom briefcase in her hand suddenly seemed to carry an immense weight, filled with secrets and consequences he couldn't possibly fathom. But Caleb Vance, high on his petty power and drowning in his own mediocrity, had no idea what kind of storm he was about to unleash. And he certainly had no idea he had just slapped the weather itself. We're at the point of no return. The whole world is watching. What do you think Caleb should have done right at this moment to save himself? Drop your thoughts, and don't forget to hit that like button if you believe karma is about to deliver a masterpiece. The tension in Elysian Couture thickened, becoming a palpable, living entity. The spectacle had drawn in everyone, turning the 3-story temple of fashion into a gladiator-style arena. In her pristine Century City office, Diane Finch, the Western Regional Manager for Elysian, received the frantic call. "Ma'am, we have a code red at the Rodeo Drive store. The manager, he's in a confrontation with a customer. It's all over social media." Diane's stomach plunged. The Rodeo Drive flagship was their crown jewel, the glittering showpiece that generated over $20 million in annual revenue. "I'm on my way." Back at the boutique, Caleb's aggression had peaked. "Security!" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the marble. "We need this woman removed, immediately!" 2 security guards approached, their expressions a mixture of caution and weariness. The senior guard, a man named David Chen, who had worked retail security for 2 decades, recognized the pattern immediately. But something was different here. The woman at the center of the storm was preternaturally calm, an island of stillness in a sea of hostility. "Sir, what's the situation?" David asked, his trained eye assessing everything at once. "This woman is causing a disturbance," Caleb shouted, pointing a trembling finger. "She's trying to return fraudulent merchandise and started making threats when we refused." A single, perfectly arched eyebrow rose on Imani's face, the first crack in her serene composure. "Threats? I have not uttered a single threat." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the onlooking crowd. "I have video evidence that says otherwise," Mia Kim called out from her position, her phone held high like a torch. 75,000 people just watched you verbally abuse and then assault this woman for trying to return a clutch." Diane Finch burst through the front doors, her heels clicking a frantic Morse code of panic on the marble. Her eyes widened at the scene. Nearly 100 people now, their phones forming a digital firing squad around her customer service desk. "What in God's name is going on here?" she demanded, her voice a whip crack of authority. Caleb straightened his tie, his confidence momentarily restored by the arrival of his superior. "Diane, thank God. This woman became belligerent and aggressive when we refused her fraudulent return. She threatened me and my staff." Diane's gaze swept the crowd, her brain's PR alarm screaming. She knew every second of this was being recorded, ready to be dissected and amplified by the merciless court of social media. "Ma'am," Diane said, addressing Imani with a strained, professional courtesy. "I apologize for this confusion. I'm Diane Finch, the regional manager. Perhaps we could step into my office and resolve this quietly." "There is nothing to resolve quietly," Imani replied. Her voice, though not loud, carried to every corner of the now silent store. "Your manager just assaulted me in front of 100 witnesses. This has moved far beyond a customer service issue." The word assaulted sent a fresh shockwave through the room. "Now wait a minute," Caleb interjected, his face turning a blotchy red. "She's exaggerating. I barely touched her. It was only because she was getting aggressive." "He slapped her in the face," an older man in the crowd stated, his voice booming with indignation. "We all saw it." Diane's blood pressure skyrocketed. This wasn't just a PR nightmare. It was a potential multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The legal exposure alone was career-ending. "Caleb!" she hissed through gritted teeth. "Shut up!" But Caleb was too far down the rabbit hole to stop digging. He was a cornered animal, lashing out blindly. "No, I'm not going to be intimidated by some entitled scam artist trying to disrupt my store. She probably bought this thing from a knockoff shop on Santee Alley and is trying to return it here for a full refund." The accusation, so ludicrous and laced with classist venom, hung in the air like a lit stick of dynamite. Imani's fingers tightened ever so slightly around the handle of her briefcase. "You want to know the truth?" Caleb's voice grew louder, a pathetic crescendo of self-destruction. "People like her think they can just roll in here and bully us with their social media and their fake outrage. Well, this is private property, and I have every right to refuse service to anyone I want." A young law student in the crowd shouted back, "Not if you're refusing service based on race. That's illegal." "Who said anything about race?" Caleb's defensive shriek was an admission of guilt. "This is about behavior. It's about respect. It's about knowing your place." Knowing your place. The phrase landed with the force of a physical blow. A collective gasp swept through the store. Even Diane Finch squeezed her eyes shut, knowing those 3 words would be in every headline. Imani checked her watch again. The board meeting had already started without her, but she understood, with chilling clarity, that this raw, ugly classroom of prejudice, was now the most important boardroom in her world. "My place?" she repeated, her voice so quiet that people had to strain to hear it. "Tell me, Mr. Vance, where exactly do you believe my place is?" "Look, lady, I don't know what kind of game you're playing." "This is not a game." Imani's interruption was soft, but absolute, slicing through his tirade. "And I strongly suggest you consider your next words with extreme care." A palpable shift in energy occurred. The dynamic between the angry manager and the calm customer had fundamentally changed. A local news blogger in the crowd, Sarah Martinez from LA Urban Beat, knew she had stumbled upon the story of the year and started her own live broadcast. At Sterling Global Holdings headquarters, the corporate communications department was now in full-blown crisis mode. Calls were flooding in. The company's stock, monitored by algorithmic trading programs that scrape social media for negative sentiment, had just registered its first significant dip of the day. Caleb, blissfully unaware of the multi-billion-dollar shockwaves he was creating, continued his suicidal monologue. "You people come in here with your attitudes, demanding everything, thinking the world owes you something. Well, I've got news for you. It doesn't." Diane Finch knew, with the cold certainty of a terminal diagnosis, that her career was likely over. Viral racism scandals weren't survivable in retail management. Her only option was damage control. "Mr. Vance, you are suspended, effective immediately. Please go to the back office, now." "Suspended?" His voice cracked. "For what? For doing my job? For upholding standards?" "For assaulting a customer on the sales floor," Diane snapped, her own composure finally shattering. The crowd murmured its approval. But Imani remained motionless, observing the chaos swirling around her as if studying a fascinating social experiment. Her phone buzzed. It was another text from her chief of staff. "Emergency SGH board meeting postponed. Social media crisis developing resolution. Need you ASAP." Imani looked at the message, then at Caleb Vance's unraveling, panicked face, then at the 100 phones documenting his professional obliteration. For the first time since she had walked into the store nearly an hour ago, a small, knowing smile touched the corners of her lips. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice clear and resonant in the stunned silence, "I believe it's time we had a proper conversation about standards." The silence in Elysian couture was absolute, heavier than the most expensive diamond in the display case. 100 people held their breath as Imani Sterling slowly, methodically, placed her briefcase on the marble counter and opened it with the deliberate precision of a bomb disposal expert. Caleb Vance's bravado finally evaporated, replaced by a creeping dread. There was something in her movements, too calm, too controlled, too purposeful, that set off every alarm bell in his nervous system. Diane Finch took a half-step forward, her manager's instincts screaming that this situation was about to spiral into a new, unforeseen dimension. "Standards," Imani repeated, her voice resonating across the marble expanse, like a judge pronouncing sentence. "Let's discuss standards, shall we, Mr. Vance?" From the briefcase, she withdrew not a wallet, not a phone, but a slim leather portfolio embossed with a simple, elegant gold insignia. SGH. The crowd pushed forward, phones straining to capture the impending revelation. "Do you know what real standards look like?" Imani asked, opening the portfolio. The document inside was clearly an official corporate report. "They look like quarterly performance reviews that rank this flagship store, Stor 7, in the bottom 10% for customer satisfaction among our entire North American portfolio." Caleb's face went white. Where did you get that?" "They look," she continued, turning a page with a soft rustle, her voice gaining strength, "like the 18 formal discrimination complaints filed against this specific location in the last 9 months. All of them filed by customers of color. All of them summarily dismissed by store and regional management." Diane Finch felt her knees go weak. Those were confidential, sealed corporate legal documents. Access was restricted to the highest levels of senior executives and the general counsel's office. "They look," Imani said, her voice dropping to an icy calm as she turned another page, "like employment lawsuits waiting to be filed. 2 sexual harassment settlements you personally authorized, Mr. Vance. Multiple workers' compensation claims illegally denied, a pattern of OSHA violations that were deliberately covered up during regional inspections." A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the crowd. Mia Kim's Instagram Live had surged past 150,000 viewers. The comments were exploding. "Who is this woman? She has the receipts! This is insane!" Caleb's voice was a choked whisper. You can't have those files. Those are private. Those are company documents." Imani finally looked up from the portfolio. Her dark eyes, laser-focused and utterly devoid of fear, locked onto his for the first time since the assault. "You are absolutely right, Mr. Vance. They are private company documents." She reached back into her briefcase. This time, she withdrew a business card case made of titanium and carbon fiber. With a flick of her thumb, she selected a single heavy card stock and held it between 2 fingers. The air crackled with anticipation. "My name," she announced, her voice ringing with an authority that vibrated through the very floor, "is Imani Sterling. I am the chairwoman and chief executive officer of Sterling Global Holdings." She slid the card across the polished marble. It glided to a stop directly in front of Diane Finch. The reaction was not a gasp. It was a physical shockwave. Phones were nearly dropped. A woman in the front row actually whispered, "Oh my God," and the phrase rippled through the stunned audience like a prayer. Caleb Vance's mouth opened and closed, his gills flapping as he drowned in the suddenly hostile air. His eyes darted from the elegantly printed card on the counter to Imani's implacable face, to Diane Finch, who looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. Sterling Global Holdings, the parent company, the multinational conglomerate that owned Elysian Couture, the corporation that controlled over 1,000 luxury retail locations worldwide, the corporation whose founder and CEO he had just called a broke-ass scammer before physically assaulting her in front of 150,000 live witnesses. That's impossible," Caleb stammered. You can't be." "The woman you called ghetto?" Imani's voice was perfectly calm. "The woman whose place you seem to know so much about? The woman you assaulted for attempting to return a defective product in a store that I own?" Diane Finch's corporate training finally took over her frozen limbs. She dropped to one knee, an involuntary act of supplication, to retrieve the business card. Her hands trembled violently as she read the embossed text. Imani Sterling, Chairwoman and CEO, Sterling Global Holdings. The SGH logo was identical to the one on the letterhead of her own termination papers, should that day ever come. Ms. Sterling," Diane breathed, her entire 15-year career flashing before her eyes. I had no idea. If I had known... If you had known, you would have treated me differently? Imani's question cut through Diane's pathetic excuse, like a surgeon's scalpel. Is that the standard here at Elysian? That customers are only treated with dignity if they happen to be your ultimate boss? The profound philosophical weight of the question silenced the entire store. The crowd, the viewers online, everyone understood the deeper truth she had just exposed. Respect shouldn't be a privilege bestowed based on perceived status. It should be an absolute, unassailable right. Caleb's survival instinct finally clawed its way through his shock. Ms. Sterling, This is all a catastrophic misunderstanding. I would never... I didn't know. You didn't know what, exactly, Mr. Vance? Imani asked, her tone dangerously quiet. Did you not know that black women are deserving of basic human dignity? Did you not know that physical assault is a felony, regardless of the victim's net worth? Sarah Martinez from LA Urban Beat was whispering urgently into her phone. This is completely unprecedented. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company has just been assaulted by her own middle manager on a live feed. This is international news. Meanwhile, the executive floor at SGH Tower was in a state of controlled panic. Emergency board calls were initiated. Stock analysts were being preemptively briefed. The company's entire legal division was activated. The live streams had now exploded to over 250,000 viewers across a dozen platforms. The hashtag #ChoreSterlingSlap was trending worldwide. Imani reached into her briefcase a final time. She withdrew a sleek, custom-built tablet, and its screen flickered to life, displaying real-time social media analytics and stock market data. In the past 45 minutes, she announced to the room, her voice that of a CEO delivering a grim quarterly report, Sterling Global Holdings stock has dropped by 14%. Our market capitalization has lost approximately $3.4 billion. And our brand reputation index, which we spend $100 million a year to maintain, has fallen into critical territory. Caleb Vance's knees physically buckled. $3.4 billion. The number was so abstractly, apocalyptically large, his mind couldn't even process it. He stumbled backwards and collapsed into a plush leather armchair reserved for high-spending clients. But that's not the most interesting part, Imani continued, swiping a finger across the screen. The most interesting part is this incident is now being broadcast live to over 300,000 people. It has been retweeted 17,000 times, and news vans from CNN, NBC, and CBS are currently pulling up outside. She turned the tablet so the crowd could witness the digital firestorm in real time. The social media feeds were moving too fast for the human eye to read. Boycott Elysian. Sue them into oblivion. Imani Sterling is my new hero. Mr. Vance, Imani said, her voice cutting through the digital noise. Do you finally understand what you've done? You didn't just slap a customer. You didn't just assault a black woman. You committed a felony against the chief executive officer of your parent company in front of 250,000 witnesses. Your single act of bigotry has cost our shareholders billions of dollars. The full legal ramifications finally hit Caleb like a freight train. Criminal assault charges, civil rights lawsuits, wrongful termination suits from his past victims. His entire life was not just crumbling, it had been pulverized into dust in real time. But Imani wasn't finished. Her gaze shifted, pinning Diane Finch to the floor like a specimen. Ms. Finch, as regional manager, how long have you been aware of the pattern of discrimination complaints originating from this store? Diane's mouth opened, but no words came out. Any answer was a landmine. Denial was a lie. Admission was corporate suicide. Was it 6 months? Imani's questions were like precision drone strikes. A year? Longer? How many customers of color were humiliated in this store while you looked the other way? How many employees were harassed while you protected the profits of a racist manager? The crowd watched, transfixed, as the entire corporate hierarchy collapsed like a house of cards. First Caleb, now Diane. The systemic nature of the rot was being laid bare for all to see. David Chen, the security guard, took a hesitant step forward. Ms. Sterling, for what it's worth, I've reported Mr. Vance's behavior to Ms. Finch's office 3 times in the past year. Good customers treated like dirt because of how they looked. I wanted to do more, but you were afraid for your job, Imani finished for him. A flicker of empathy crossed her face. I understand, David, and that is precisely the culture that ends today. She powered down the tablet and placed it back in the briefcase with the same meticulous care she'd used to reveal it. The crowd remained rapt as Imani pulled out her personal phone, a sleek, custom device with military-grade encryption and direct access to her executive command network. Maria, she spoke into the phone, her voice carrying across the silent store. It's Imani. Yes, I am still at Store 7. No, the board meeting is the least of our worries. The board meeting is canceled. I need you to patch me through to the entire SGH legal department, immediately. We have a Code Crimson situation. Employee assault on a corporate officer. Yes, you heard me correctly. Activate full media containment protocols. And Maria, cancel my entire schedule for the next 3 days. We're restructuring. She ended the call, and her gaze fell upon Caleb, whose face had gone from white to a sickly ashen gray. Mr. Vance, in approximately 7 minutes, my chief legal counsel and his team will arrive. They will be accompanied by officers from the Beverly Hills Police Department, who will be very interested in taking your statement regarding the felony you just committed. You have until they walk through those doors to decide how you wish to proceed. Caleb's voice came out as a ragged whisper. What? What are you saying? I'm saying you have 2 choices, Imani replied, her tone now utterly businesslike, stripped of all emotion. It was the voice of finality. Choice 1, you cooperate fully. You admit to your actions, you submit to immediate termination for cause, and you pray that your cooperation mitigates the severity of the criminal charges that are about to be filed against you. The word criminal hung in the air, a final nail in his professional coffin. Choice 2, you continue to deny, deflect, and lie, in which case Sterling Global Holdings will bring the full and unlimited weight of our legal and financial resources to bear in prosecuting you to the maximum extent of the law, assault and battery, civil rights violations, and given the explicitly racial nature of your comments, we will be petitioning the district attorney to add hate crime enhancements. Diane Finch finally found her voice. Ms. Sterling, please, surely we can handle this internally without involving... Imani's gaze snapped back to Diane, and it was so cold, so full of focused power, that Diane physically recoiled. Ms. Finch, you were a bystander to a physical assault committed by your employee. You witnessed the racial slurs. Your own records prove you have prior knowledge of a pattern of systematic discrimination that you ignored. You are not in a position to negotiate. You are in a position to be named as a co-defendant. The brutal, unsparing reality of corporate accountability was playing out for all to see. These were no longer HR issues. They were criminal matters that would not only destroy careers, but could very well end in prison sentences. Caleb finally sagged completely in the chair, the weight of his monstrous mistake crushing the last of his defiance. I need a lawyer. That would be a wise decision, Imani agreed, her tone neutral. But understand this, your crime was witnessed by over 300,000 people. It was recorded from no less than a dozen angles. The evidence against you is absolute and overwhelming. Your only remaining choice is to decide how much more damage you wish to inflict upon yourself and your family. The Elysian Couture flagship, once a temple to luxury, had become a crime scene, a courtroom, and a corporate boardroom all in one. And at the center of it all stood Imani Sterling. No longer the victim. She was now the architect of a justice so swift and so total that no one in that room would ever forget it. 10 minutes later, the boutique transformed. It was no longer a retail space. It was a corporate war room. Imani's legal team arrived not like lawyers, but like a Tier 1 Special Forces unit. The lead attorney, a towering man named Marcus Sterling, who exuded an aura of fearsome competence, led a team of 3 other lawyers in dark, immaculate suits. Behind them, 2 Beverly Hills police officers entered, their presence instantly changing the legal gravity of the situation. The crowd had now swelled to over 150 people inside, with hundreds more gathering on the sidewalk outside, drawn by the news vans that had parked hastily at the curb. Mia Kim's live stream had peaked at an astonishing 380,000 concurrent viewers. A senior detective, a sharp woman named Chen, approached Imani with a calm professionalism. "Ms. Sterling, I'm Detective Chen. We received a report of an assault." "That is correct, Detective," Imani said, her composure unshakable. "At approximately 2:15 p.m., that man, Mr. Caleb Vance, physically struck me in the face following a series of racially charged remarks. The entire event was documented on Stor security footage and by multiple witnesses." She spoke with the detached clarity of a CEO, reporting a data breach, not a victim describing a violent attack. Marcus Sterling stepped forward. "Detective, we have a comprehensive file ready for you. High-resolution video from at least 8 different angles, isolated audio capturing every slur, and a preliminary list of over 100 witnesses who have volunteered to give statements." Caleb Vance sat in the corner, a marionette with its strings cut. His expensive suit was now a wrinkled mess, and his face was the color of curdled milk. The lawyer he had managed to call was still 20 minutes away in traffic, leaving him to face the corporate and criminal justice systems utterly alone. Detective Chen began the official process. "Mr. Vance, I need to inform you of your—" "Wait," Caleb interrupted, his voice breaking. "Please, before this goes any further, can I please speak to Miss Sterling for a moment?" All eyes swiveled to Imani. Her lead attorney, Sterling, gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head. The standard legal advice to never speak to an assailant. "You have 90 seconds, Imani said, overriding him. "And Detective Chen will remain within earshot." Caleb stumbled to his feet, his hands trembling. "Ms. Sterling, I have made a mistake so terrible I don't have words for it. I know I can't take it back, but I need you to know I'm not... I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to be a racist?" Imani's question was surgically precise. "Or you didn't mean to get caught being a racist in front of the one person on Earth who could hold you accountable for it?" The distinction eviscerated his fumbling apology. It perfectly separated intent from consequence, hidden character from public circumstance. "I don't know," Caleb admitted, tears finally tracing paths through his panic sweat. "I think I've just been so angry for so long, at everything. My wife left, my kids won't speak to me, I've been passed over for promotions I thought I deserved, and I think I took it out on people, on customers who I thought couldn't fight back." The confession was pathetic and devastating in its raw honesty. "So you specifically targeted black customers," Imani stated, not as a question, but as a conclusion, "because you saw us as easy victims, powerless." "Yes," he whispered, "I think I did, and I hate myself for it." His honesty was unexpected, but Imani had navigated enough hostile negotiations and corporate takeovers to recognize a last-ditch effort at manipulation, even if it was cloaked in genuine self-pity. Mr. Vance, your personal problems are not an excuse for assault. Your career disappointments are not a justification for racism. And your tears will not undo the years of damage and humiliation you have inflicted on countless customers who came into this store seeking a moment of joy and were met with your bitterness instead. She gestured to her tablet, where real-time data was still pouring in. In the past hour, my executive office has been flooded. 912 emails and direct messages from former customers and employees, all detailing their experiences with you at this store. Stories of humiliation, degradation, and blatant discrimination. Your behavior today was not an isolated incident. It was the public finale of a long and ugly pattern. Marcus Sterling handed Imani a thick, freshly printed folder. Ms. Sterling, the preliminary financial impact analysis you requested is complete. Imani opened the folder, her eyes scanning the columns of numbers, the final accounting of Caleb's colossal mistake. Store 7 generates on average $22.14 million in annual revenue, she announced, her voice now projecting to the entire room. However, when my analytics team factors in the hidden costs of your management, the abnormally high employee turnover, the lost customer loyalty from minority communities, the previously settled HR complaints, your store's net profitability drops to just $3.2 million. Diane Finch, who had been trying to blend into the wallpaper, felt a fresh wave of nausea. The flagship was profitable, but it was a house of cards. A single major lawsuit could wipe out its entire annual profit. Furthermore, Imani continued, our brand reputation analysis projects that this single incident will result in an estimated $50 million in lost market value and customer goodwill over the next fiscal year. 3 of our largest corporate partners have already put their contracts on hold pending the outcome of our investigation. The numbers were catastrophic. Caleb's ugly 30-second outburst of racist violence had vaporized more value than a factory fire. Detective Chen stepped forward again. Mr. Vance, based on the overwhelming evidence and witness corroboration, I am placing you under arrest for assault in the 3rd degree. You have the right to remain silent. Please! Caleb's voice was a desperate crack. Miss Sterling, please, I'll do anything. I'll resign. I'll issue a public apology. I'll give every cent I have to a charity. Please, don't let this one mistake destroy my entire life. Imani regarded his tear-streaked face for a long, silent moment. The crowd, the cameras, the entire world watching online held its breath, waiting to see if mercy would temper the swift, cold blade of justice. Mr. Vance, you are asking for compassion from a woman you've shown nothing but contempt for. You are begging for a forgiveness that you never once offered to any of the victims of your prejudice. Do you understand the profound, staggering irony of your position? She closed the folder. But here is what I will do. I will offer you something that you never offered any of your victims. A choice. The room leaned in as one. This was the pivotal moment. Choice 1. You submit to this arrest. You face felony charges. We pursue a civil lawsuit for damages against you personally that will bankrupt you and your family for the rest of your lives. Your name will become a permanent synonym for corporate bigotry. Your career is over. You will be a pariah. Caleb's shoulders slumped, crushed under the unbearable weight of that future. Choice 2, Imani said, her voice shifting. You agree, right now, to become the first case study in our new Sterling Global Holdings Corporate Reform Initiative. You will participate in 200 hours of intensive racial bias and sensitivity training, led by the nation's top sociologists. You will make public appearances, telling your story, detailing the cost of discrimination. You will work with my legal and HR teams to help us identify and dismantle systemic racism throughout our entire global company. The offer was so unexpected, so radical, It sent a ripple of astonished murmurs through the crowd. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reconstruction. In exchange, Imani continued, we will request the DA reduce the felony assault charge to a misdemeanor. You will avoid jail time, and you will have the chance, not a guarantee, but a chance, to rebuild your life around something more meaningful than bitterness and hate. Even Marcus Sterling looked surprised. This was not the scorched earth litigation strategy most CEOs would deploy. However, Imani's voice hardened to steel. If you ever violate a single term of this agreement, if you speak ill of this process, if you fail a single training module, or if you are ever again credibly accused of discriminating against another human being, we will release every shred of evidence we have compiled to the public, and we will financially and legally obliterate you. This is your only chance. There will not be another. Caleb wiped his streaming eyes with the back of his hand. Why? He choked out. After what I did, why would you give me that chance? Because punishment without education is just revenge, and revenge doesn't change behavior, Imani replied, her voice now aimed at the entire crowd, at every camera, at the world. And because the real human story of a man who confronts his own bigotry and chooses to change has more power to prevent future discrimination than 100 prison sentences. She turned to the entire boutique. This is not about forgiveness. This is not about being the bigger person. This is about a strategic, systematic solution. Firing one racist manager doesn't eliminate racism, but using one racist manager's downfall to re-educate an entire company of 50,000 employees, that is how you create real, lasting change. The crowd erupted in spontaneous, thunderous applause. The livestream comments scrolled in a blur of praise. A CEO with a soul. Education over incarceration. This is real leadership. Detective Chen looked to Imani. Ms. Sterling, are you certain you wish to modify the charges on these terms? I am, but I want his acceptance on the record, right now, witnessed by everyone here. Caleb looked around the room, at the phones, the crowd, the police officers, the lawyers. His entire world had been demolished in less than 2 hours, and yet, improbably, he was being handed a single blueprint to build something new from the wreckage. I agree, he said, his voice raw with a mix of shame and gratitude. I agree to all of it. Everything. Sterling handed him a tablet displaying a legally binding agreement that had been drafted in the last 10 minutes. As Caleb shakily signed his name, Imani turned her attention to Diane Finch, who had been standing frozen in horror for the past half hour. Miss Finch, you also have a choice to make, Imani said. But unlike Mr. Vance, your terms are not negotiable. The regional manager's career hung by a single thread, her fate now in the hands of the woman whose immense power she had failed to recognize until it was far, far too late. The corporate restructuring of Elysian Couture, and by extension Sterling Global Holdings, began in that moment. Within 2 hours, Imani Sterling had transformed Stor 7 from a symbol of retail bigotry into the epicenter of a revolution in corporate accountability. Diane Finch stood before Imani, a defendant awaiting her sentence. Her 15-year career, her stock options, her entire professional identity hung in the balance. Ms. Finch, Imani began, her voice crisp and authoritative. You presided over a regional division where one of our flagship stores became a hotbed of discrimination. You ignored 18 formal complaints in 9 months. You did not lead, you enabled. You chose willful ignorance over responsible management because it was easier. Diane's mouth was desert dry. The crowd listened intently, witnessing a masterclass in corporate justice. However, Imani continued, to everyone's surprise, merely firing you is the easy, predictable solution. It generates a positive headline for a day, satisfies the thirst for outrage on social media, and ultimately changes nothing about the systemic problems you allowed to fester. Her legal team produced another portfolio. Instead, you are being reassigned. Effective immediately, you are the new interim head of our newly created Diversity, Inclusion, and Customer Dignity Implementation Division. Your sole job will be to identify and eradicate discriminatory practices across all 1,047 of our global retail locations. Your performance bonuses, and indeed your continued employment, will be tied directly to measurable increases in customer satisfaction scores from minority and marginalized communities. It was a punishment of brilliant, poetic justice. She was being forced to become the chief architect of the solution to the very problem she had perpetuated through inaction. You will be working directly with our new Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Keisha Washington, who starts on Monday. Your first joint project is the launch of the Dignity Direct Customer Feedback Platform, a mobile app that gives any customer a direct, unfilterable pipeline to my executive office, completely bypassing store and regional management. Every single complaint will be reviewed by an executive-level team, and every single one will receive a response within 24 hours. Marcus Sterling handed Diane a tablet preloaded with the technical specifications. "The app launches globally in 30 days, he stated flatly. The crowd murmured its approval. This wasn't a Band-Aid. It was preventative surgery on the corporate soul. Furthermore, Imani announced to the store at large, "We are implementing the following changes across all Sterling global properties, effective tomorrow. Every store will display new Credo signage. All customers deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, and excellence. Period. If your experience is anything less, contact the CEO's office directly via the Dignity Direct app." Riley's live stream was now at nearly 500,000 viewers. The comments were a cascade of positivity. Systemic change in real time. This is how you fix a broken culture. Education, accountability, and action. Imani then turned to David Chen, the security guard who had demonstrated integrity when it would have been easier to stay silent. "David, your record shows 3 separate attempts to report Mr. Vance. You saw a problem and tried to act. We need people like you. I am offering you a new position as Director of Asset Protection and De-Escalation Training. Your job will be to retrain our entire global security force, focusing on bias recognition and customer dignity protocols." David's eyes widened in disbelief. "Ma'am, Yes, absolutely, yes." The store erupted in another round of applause, a tangible reward for moral courage. The announcements kept coming, each one another pillar in a new foundation. A $25 million Customer Dignity Fund was being established to compensate any past customer who could provide a credible claim of discrimination at any of their stores, overseen by an independent panel of civil rights attorneys. Mandatory, ongoing bias and anti-racism training for all 50,000 employees, developed in partnership with leading civil rights organizations, a commitment to diversify the company's supply chain with a pledge that within 18 months, 40% of all vendor contracts would be with minority and women-owned businesses. Marcus Sterling delivered the final operational point. Store 7 will close for 1 week for intensive staff retraining and a cultural reset. When it reopens, it will serve as our global flagship for diversity and inclusion, a living laboratory for the new standards of Elysion Couture. The irony was exquisite. The store that had been a monument to prejudice would become a beacon of reform. Imani's phone buzzed. It was her CFO. The stock had already begun to rally, recovering 9% from its lowest point as institutional investors processed the news of her decisive, transformative actions. She looked around the store, at the dozens of people who had come to shop, and had instead witnessed a corporate revolution. What happened here today proves that these painful moments don't have to end in destruction. They can end in reconstruction. They can be the catalysts we use to build better systems, better companies, and a better, more decent world. As the legal teams and police began to process the scene, Caleb Vance, still dazed, approached Imani one last time. "Mrs. Sterling, I know I don't deserve this, but I swear to you, I will not waste this chance. I will spend the rest of my life proving that people can change." "Mr. Vance, I'm not giving you this opportunity because you deserve it," Imani said, her words a final, crucial lesson. "I am giving it to you because my other customers deserve better. Your transformation is not for your redemption. It is for their protection." 6 months later, the change was undeniable. The Elysian flagship on Rodeo Drive had become a must-see for retail executives and business school students studying corporate turnarounds. The Dignity Direct app had over 3 million downloads, and customer satisfaction scores among minority communities had skyrocketed by over 70% globally. Caleb Vance, dressed in a simple suit, stood before a packed auditorium at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, telling his story as the lead ambassador for Imani's corporate accountability program. The 200 hours of training had become a full-time mission. "I was a man whose deep personal insecurities manifested as prejudice," he told the rapt audience of future leaders. "I believed power meant putting people down. Ms. Sterling taught me that true power is the ability to lift others up. And that's not just a moral principle, it's the most profitable business strategy in the 21st century." The man who had slapped Imani Sterling was gone. In his place was an advocate for the very dignity he had once tried to steal. Diane Finch had thrived, discovering a passion for systemic change she never knew she had. The initiatives she implemented had led to a 92% reduction in discrimination complaints across the entire retail empire. Marcus, the former security guard, now managed a department of 300, creating training programs that were being licensed by other retail giants. The Fonsert Sterling standard had become a viral hashtag used to pressure other corporations to adopt similar accountability measures. Imani Sterling herself graced the cover of Forbes, not as a fashion icon, but as the CEO of the Year, who proved that decency and diversity were a company's greatest assets. Her TED Talk, titled "Turn Your Scars into Stars," garnered 20 million views, where she explained that the most touching stories are not about individual triumphs, but about how individual courage can spark collective transformation. The incident that began with a slap had ended in a movement. But the most profound change was invisible. It was the discrimination that didn't happen because a manager remembered Caleb's story. It was the respectful service a young black woman received because an associate understood the company's non-negotiable values. It was the human dignity that was preserved because a system now existed to protect it. Today, visiting that store on Rodeo Drive feels different. The marble still gleams, the chandeliers still glitter, but the air itself feels cleaner, lighter. It reflects a culture not of exclusion, but of genuine welcome. What did this story teach you? Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar? Share your story in the comments below. Your experiences, your voice, it all has power, and your story could be the catalyst for the next transformation. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring real-life stories of justice, resilience, and systemic change. Hit that notification bell, because every story we share is a blueprint for building a better world. Remember, true power isn't about getting even. It's about making things better for everyone. Let's build a community where every story matters, and every voice can change the world.